consistent with the overall kind of design and character of the existing signs on the building. A variance was granted then to allow that to happen. When this new applicant came forward and said that they would like to do the same type of sign that was considered with the last year's variance, we noted that internally illuminated signs aren't permitted. We said, have you looked at a backlit type sign, which would be permitted, or some other downcast sign? And they also ultimately chose to come in and apply for a variance. One of the things that we noted with multi-tenant buildings is they are required now, if it came in today, to have a overall sign package that's approved by the city. And that sign package would lay out the type of signage, the square footage of the signage for each of the individual tenant spaces that are located within a building. This building does not have that sign package approved, and as such, they're coming forward with each and every sign essentially for consideration by the city council. We have noted that with the owner of this property, it's ultimately up to them that they would want to come in and get an overall sign package approved. They don't have to. They can continue to allow their tenants to come in on a one-by-one basis. But if they were to come forward and get an overall sign package, it would take away some of this kind of one-off type sign review that we're doing for this particular building. In any case, the applicant's proposing a internally illuminated sign that meets all other criteria of the city's guidelines relating to signage for this particular building. In this particular case, the city permits wall signage to occupy 15% of the building facade front square footage of the building. The city typically would look at this and say for each space, we would calculate how much building facade footage or square footage they have, and then we would apply the 15% and say each one of the tenant spaces gets X square feet. With this building, because it's in existence, because there's existing signs already on the building, we're looking at it from almost, we're kind of paring it down to the actual space that, or wall space that the actual lease space occupies. And so in this case, we actually asked the tenant for a building footprint to try to confirm kind of wall sizes and things like that. We did a little bit of an estimate essentially on the overall wall face, but what we looked at was there's a lease space that is on the second floor of this building. And so when we calculated the allowable square footage for the particular sign that's being requested, we did the width of the lease space, or the internal lease space width, and then we did an estimate of the height of that space, but we didn't go the full 2 stories. We tried to estimate what's the single floor height, leaving ourselves some room that if a second story tenant ever changed, right now the second story is occupied by the owner of that building, but if they ever did want to parcel off some of the second story space, that there would be some allotment of building wall frontage that could be utilized by the second story tenant. So when we did the calculation, we came up with 14.5 feet height by 19 feet in width. That yielded a total of 275 square feet. Applying the 15% provision, there's approximately 41 square feet that would be permissible for a wall sign. The applicant's actually proposing a wall sign that's approximately 24 square feet, so well under the 41 provided. And it occupies approximately 12% of the overall wall space. The city has criteria for granting a variance. In this particular case, the same findings we made last year would essentially apply, and that is the difficulty in this particular situation is that the building's in existence, the other tenants already have existing signs that are in existence, and the applicant's trying to essentially blend in or meet the character of the other signs by building a similar type internally illuminated sign. The Planning Commission had a discussion relating to this. One of the things that was noted by the Planning Commission was when we had the last sign package or last sign request come in, we looked at trying to break up the sign by requiring individual letters rather than a blanket panelized internally illuminated sign. And I don't know if some of you remember, we went through this process. The applicant came back with a revised plan where they went from literally a rectangular panel that was entirely illuminated and one large sign to breaking it down to individual letters. The Planning Commission discussed this at the Planning Commission meeting. I went back to the representative of the sign company and talked to him about the way that this sign would be constructed. And in your packet, there's the sign picture. There's a gray kind of outline around it, but that's not representative of the sign. The sign itself is truly just that green portion with the shield in the middle of it, which is one piece, and then the green portion. That green portion is a backing that would be utilized behind individual letters. So each one of the wealth protection letters, so the WEALTH, whatever, those are all individual letters mounted onto a green backing, and the illumination is in those letters, not in the backing. I talked to them about being able to take the backing out of it, and they said the letters would go away. They wouldn't be able to see them because if you notice, they are fairly small letters, say compared to, if you look at the elevation that they provided, the Edward Jones sign next door, you can see a distinguishable difference in the size of those letters. I think that explanation was found acceptable to the Planning Commission. Again, ultimately, they meet the square footage requirement, and they are talking about those individual letters mounted on that green backing. With that, the Planning Commission recommended approval to the City Council of a variance that is represented in the resolution attached in the packet. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions relating to the request.
At the public hearing, no one came forward and spoke, is that?
No, the applicant nor any other members of the public came
Okay.
forward to the public hearing.
What was the hardship that the applicant was using as to why he or she didn't want to follow the city sign ordinance?
The hardship that we found, and again, it's subjective, it's up to the city to make the finding. The Planning Commission had recommended the finding that the not allowing the internally illuminated sign would give them a disadvantage in signage essentially in the building and would change the character of the rest of the signs, noting that the rest of the signs are all internally illuminated. So that was the
Was
the
that his
finding.
argument for why he did this?
They want to have the same kind of they want to have the same allotment of signage, and they feel that going to either a downcast or a upcast or even the backlit signage would fade out their sign for I don't know how to it would make it less noticeable than the other signs on the building, which would give them a disadvantage in that the other tenants didn't have to comply with.
Mark, two questions. The sign package that we have spoken of in the past, that requirement, if I remember correctly, was on the books when this building got built. It's just that when the owner started leasing it and people started coming in and putting up signs, it was overlooked by our part. And I don't mean
I think
our part. I mean everyone involved at the city, from planning to administration to planning to city council. Is that correct?
I think that it was on the books as a requirement. What we couldn't find in the file, and whether it's record keeping but I couldn't find it in the minutes either, was a sign package that was approved.
Because I was part
Yeah.
of the other sign when I was on the planning commission, and we went quite a long time on that.
Right.
So, so my concern is the hardship isn't necessarily derived by the lessee as it is, the hardship for him is already there. Is that correct?
That's essentially the finding that we made.
Okay. Now, you spoke about, because it doesn't detail it, but are you saying that each one of these dozen or 14 letters in this sign is going to have its own individual illumination source instead of one
Yeah.
14-foot source of illumination?
In speaking with the sign rep, what she told me is that each one of those letters is individually applied to that backing, which means that now I don't. I mean, we have a detail. I can't tell you 100%, but my understanding is that those letters are individually illuminated as they are individual letters. The shielded part is one plate. And I think that's all illuminated then as its own, piece of that sign, if that makes sense. For lack of a better way to describe it, but I believe that is going to be all lit up where it says the in group, and then the white part of the shield is going to be all lit as one kind of plat or acrylic plate. Whereas the wealth protection, each one of those letters is individually illuminated. Similar to what you'd see like the Edward Jones signs, each one of those letters. And if you go around the corner of the building, the variant sign that each one of the letters. And that's what she told me it was going to be. And that's what it looks like from the detail as well.
Fast Signs did variant too, if I
They
remember
did the same
correctly,
thing,
so.
yeah.
Any further discussion or questions? All right, looking for a motion to approve resolution 17-0522-02 to approve a variance to allow a sign that is internally lit and attached to the subject building located at 5159 Main Street East.
I will make that motion.
Motion by Fay,
Second?
second by Cahill. Any further discussion?
I'd just like to make a point that I don't see a hardship here. I don't see a reason why the applicant can't follow our sign policy. And until we start putting our stake in the ground that we're going to do this, perpetuating wrong doesn't make it right. So I'm not supportive of this motion.
And when I started this, that's the position I took, Mike. And as I read through this and reflected back on how we came about the variant sign that we approved,
I saw the facts a little different with the two.
Yeah, variant had a side. It wasn't the same situation.
Mayor, if I could just comment, one planning commission comment was very similar to that, and that is, while they recommended approval on this, they noted at the meeting that any new construction that was coming forward, they would not feel the same way. They felt like this was a little bit different because it had an existing base to it, but they felt that the same thing, that we had to start applying the sign ordinance as it was written. But
At what point can we recommend a sign package? Are we able to do that, or?
in this one, it was already approved, so I don't know that the city could go back and say we're gonna retro.
Right, but going forward for this building, because it seems to continually be,
The city could simply deny the variance and make every new tenant comply. I mean, that would be the way to get to the applicant coming in with a sign package,
Okay.
essentially, yeah.
okay, thank you.
I'm a proponent to not continually putting Band-Aids on ordinances. We hear about parking lots and striping and whatever, but I believe this is clearly one position where the variance is a workable solution.
But at what point does that stop? I mean, because we're continuing to do something because we've done it before. That's my struggle. What
I
precedent
agree.
are we setting?
I agree. Well, on this particular building, I think it's an anomaly. And I think when we get to the Gateway District, I think when we get to the downtown development, yes, we're gonna put our foot down and we're gonna say, this is what's on the books, we're gonna follow it tooth and nail. But in this particular situation, we've allowed Edward Jones to build a sign that way, we've allowed Variant to build a sign that way, Wausau Homes to build a sign that way, and to put our foot down now on this new business owner, I think is although precedent setting, I don't think it's the right precedence to set at this point with this particular variance. That's,
In my opinion, Madam Mayor, precedence is only set when the facts are identical. Facts are not the same on this sign as any other sign on that building.
I hear what you're saying, and I'm agreeing. I mean, even Edward Jones, their individual letters, there's,
do you have a solution besides just flat out?
Follow the ordinance.
well,
So,
you can do a backlit.
Vice question, so how do you think this one, since it's individually letters, is different, for example, than Edward Jones?
This has a backing on it without that, and I haven't seen the hardship. I mean, I keep coming back to why you do a variance is because I can't do a setback so close to the property line because of the way the property's laid out. That's a hardship not caused by the owner. That was imposed on them. I don't see that in this case.
The plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner. Would the landowner technically be the gentleman who is proposing the sign in this situation?
Yeah, I would say that's how we'd review that.
I think this is a unique property because we don't have a sign package established. So that's the uniqueness. And the hardship was, the basis for the hardship was already there before he decided to lease the space in the building. Just like
I
Edward.
haven't, yeah.
Okay.
And with all due respect, I haven't heard a reason why the hardship wouldn't, what was different that he couldn't comply with our ordinance. And that's what I'm looking at on this sign at this time.
And it would be nice to have the owner here to ask that question. I mean, so they could
Not that
speak.
I want to push it off, but would it be prudent to table it and ask the business owner to come in and talk to the council?
Are we doing it on 60 days?
Well, you know, I respect the planning commission's opinion on this for the sake of continuity in the building. And I'm looking at this from an aesthetic level. I think it would look funny to have one sign not backlit and all the rest of them backlit. You know, I would like to see it stay the same. And I agree with you, Mike. I mean, there is, to call it a hardship, I mean, that you're really kind of stretching on your definition of hardship here. But this is a really special situation, and I wouldn't vote for this resolution if it were in any other building in the city. But since it's this building and we've set this, you know, we've done this before, we've approved variances before for their neighbors. I think that they're very similar signs, and that's why I think I would be okay with voting on this and coming to a decision tonight. But it's obviously up to the rest of you guys. We do have a motion and a second for this already, right? Yeah.
Right, and I would just like to go back to the language in our ordinances that say variances may be granted when the applicant for the variance establishes that there are practical difficulties in complying with this chapter.
And my understanding is that
Practical difficulties is what I can't grasp
the
right now.
practical difficulty that you had kind of told us from the applicant is that there'd be a disadvantage from the neighbors who do have the backlit signs, and theirs would in a sense not stand out as much. Which
Right.
I can understand that, but
Yeah.
so.
Okay,
But
that
that's an
same
opinion.
that same ordinance goes on to say practical difficulties are thus defined as property owner, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner, and the variance if granted will not alter the essential characteristics of the locality. So I'm trying to be true to the ordinance.
Use in a reasonable manner, circumstances not created by the landowner, and it will not alter the character of the building. And I believe in this particular situation, he's met all three of those.
You could argue that not having a backlit sign would alter the characteristic of the building.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's the viewpoint I
Because
have.
of that standard.
Right, it would be different than the rest, so.
Any further discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's a resolution.
Oh, sorry.
Councilmember Fay,
Aye.
Councilmember DeLuca,
No,
Mayor Moskowski,
Aye.
Councilmember Broda,
Aye.
Councilmember Cahill.
Aye.
The ayes have it 4-1.
Thank you. All right, moving on to letter C, well number 4, change order number 1, and pay request number 3.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. In your packet is the change order number 1 for a deduct of $30,987.50 as well as payment request number 3 for the amount of $23,379.50. And both of those are for the well number 4 project with Mark J. Trout Wells. The change order is based on actually adjusting the final quantities that aren't being used or that were used, and kind of making an adjustment for those. As we had talked at previous meetings, there is a savings that was seen on this project. One of the bigger savings was not needing to put in that screen that was part of the original bid. The contractor has done some final work here in early May on the project that will be reflected in a final payment request, but this payment request is going up to the April 30th date. And as we mentioned earlier in our engineering report, we are working with Public Works on some final well connection and pump items that we will be bringing back to another meeting. So at this point in time, I can answer any questions on change order 1 and payment request 3.
Any questions?
Dan, on the previous request for payments, we got, I believe, the attachments, which was the breakdown that you speak of. Can we, not tonight, but can we get that so we can follow how where the savings were realized and what the $23,000 payment request is for?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. And then number 2, when you say the savings, and you spoke about the screen, wasn't the screen a separate entity, a separate line item in the bid proposal?
Correct.
Yeah, so that was not part of the 154,000 or whatever it was, or?
Well, it should have been part of the, you accepted alternate number 1 at the very beginning, so it was part of the overall contract of $179,480.
Okay.
Yep.
So the savings, like I said, I don't have the sheets. So this savings it's not in materials and labor and things. It's literally just the savings of not having to put that stainless steel screen in.
Correct, as well as some other bid items that were included in the packet. So yeah, we definitely should be able to email that out. Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, then looking for a motion to approve well number 4, change order number 1, and pay request number 3.
So moved.
Moved by Cahill,
Second?
second by DeLuca. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Parkview Road and Maple Ridge Drive improvements.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. In your packet is a plan sheet that shows the proposed improvements, a quote form, and construction agreement form. There was some discussion at your work session on this project, and I think that was all good feedback to us. The plan would be to send this packet out for quotes, and there's, I think, a variety of different discussions that staff had mentioned they'll have with adjacent property owners before the council, before we bring back quotes back to the council for action. So at this time, the project is doing some drain tile along Parkview Road. There's also some patching associated with work there, both in curb as well as some bituminous. And then Maple Ridge Drive, there was various settlements along that project that would be corrected with this quote project. So with that, I can open it up for any questions.
Any questions?
Sorry to keep, go ahead.
Oh, does that include what it might cost for the resident to connect to the sewer? Do we get a bid for that, or?
Right,
So that they know when we talk to them?
Yeah, so this project, the contractor installs the drain tile and puts a 5-foot stub for each property, and it's up to the property owner to make a connection to that
The
stub.
sub will be included in the bid?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
You weren't I do not believe you were at the April workshop, but I made an appeal to break these 2 road projects out separately and combined, so that when we go to make a determination on how to proceed, we can proceed with one and or the other, or both at the same time.
Okay.
So when you
Sure, we
put
can.
these out, can you request that they bid them that way?
Correct. Right now, they're grouped together as one project, so if that's a benefit of a quote project, we can make the contractors aware that depending on how the quotes are, the council may decide to go with one or the other or both, so we can definitely separate those out.
Any other questions or comments? All right, so looking for a motion to approve getting bids for Parkview Road and Maple Ridge Drive, both separately and joint improvements.
I'll make a motion to have Stantec seek bids for the Parkview and Maple Ridge road improvement.
Motion by Fay,
A second?
second by Broda. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, we're gonna talk about our city council goals.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, thank you. In early October, or I'm sorry, early April of this year, City Council joined for what many believe is the most important session that a City Council can have, and that is setting the future goals for the city. So this was a very exciting time for all of us, and I'm just going to go over kind of what our broad topics that we came up out of that goal setting session, and then a little bit about them. So there were 3 topics that the council really focused on, and that was creating community space, engaging the community, and improving public service. And a little bit more about that. Creating community space. City Council at the goal setting retreat would like to work on Veterans Memorial Park, and it's open, so it's completed and it's open. Maple Plain has an act of inviting mixed-use downtown that is a gathering place for the community and visitors. Engaging the community would be Maple Plain is a connected, engaged, and involved community. Maple Plain has clear, timely, and open communication with residents. Under improving public service, Maple Plain provides excellent service with a small, efficient government. Maple Plain has a sustainable public safety services, and Maple Plain has multimodal forms of transportation, connected infrastructure, and public facilities plans. So this is kind of the vision that was set by City Council at this goal-setting retreat. So in 2022, this is what we hope to get accomplished here in the city of Maple Plain, and I know that this was a wonderful event, and it was great to work with all of you guys and work on this, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that that City Council may have regarding this, or any input at all about the weekend too.
I think it's good accountability, and it's a good shared vision. People were heard, and I do believe all our residents were well represented. Yeah, motion. All right, looking for a motion to approve our city council goals, creating community, engaging the community, and improving public service.
So moved.
By Cahill,
I'll second.
second by Broda. Any further discussion?
I'd like to see, Madam Mayor, if we could somehow incorporate these visions into our communication, our written materials, put it on the bulletin board, put it on the wall. I mean, let's remind ourselves of every action we take. How does it fit into these 6 or 7 things over the next few years? Just as a constant reminder to our planning commission, our park commission, our public, our police, fire, everybody, including us, that we're doing things with an intentionality.
Intentionality, purpose, and to Councilmember DeLuca's point too, that this is a shared vision with planning and parks. So to the liaisons to that group, if you would make sure and address those at your next meetings as well too, please. All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, employee handbook. We alluded to earlier, right?
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. The Employee Handbook has been a project that has been taken on by the Personnel Committee and staff, and it's been ongoing for quite some time. It's been many years that this project has been going on. We've made a lot of good policy analysis throughout this employee handbook. The employee handbook entails everything from policy on vacation to sick leave to how you conduct yourself in the profession here at work with the city of Maple Plain, to how you handle different situations that could happen, including workers' compensation claims. There's a variety of different topics that are covered here in this employee handbook. And there is one appendix, and that appendix is a drug testing policy by the Department of Transportation. That drug policy at this time would be in effect for any employee, with the exception of the fire department operating heavy machinery, so that would include our public works workers. Currently, there isn't a drug testing for administration. Most cities our size don't, but we certainly can if that's something that City Council would like staff to do. But there's a lot of information in this employee handbook, and at this time, I would like to just ask if there's any questions from City Council regarding the information in this employee handbook. There was a lot of work done and put into this, and a lot of information. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Was the drug testing you spoke of, is that straight from the Department of Transportation, cut and paste?
That has been put together by the Minnesota League of Cities, a lot of their attorneys. They put this together, and it's there wasn't a whole lot of revisions to that document at all. It's a pretty straightforward drug test that is out there. So,
Personnel Committee essentially just used the template that was there because that's been standard language for the drivers. I think the discussion point at some point, and it's not included in this draft, is do we want to entertain the idea or have Bobby look further at the possibility of drug testing for the administrative staff? If the answer to that was yes, then there'd have to be some additional work to come back. So we left it off of the policy at this point until we could have a more robust discussion as a group.
Are we talking required drug testing, or if it came up as an issue, we could ask of it?
no.
Could be either, neither, or
okay. Yeah, or
either or
random.
both, depending on how you put it together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all up for discussion.
You said generally speaking, drug testing is not a part of a city our size.
Correct. Most communities our size do not test administration for drug testing.
Any other thoughts?
I mean, I certainly don't think we need to require it.
No.
I mean, it seems like an expense we don't need, but.
No, I'm fine.
Yeah. I did have a question. If the public wanted to view the handbook, where would they find this besides this
Mhm.
work, or this packet?
Yeah.
today?
If anyone would like to view the employee handbook, you certainly can stop into City Hall. We'll provide you a copy of it. We haven't in the past posted that on our website in the past. I mean, we certainly can. It is public information. I know it is on this packet on our website. So yeah, I mean, we can definitely put it on our website.
You got thousands of dollars in this employee handbook. You
Yeah.
sure you want to put it out there for cut and paste?
So-
Well, but if we go back to one of the visions we just approved, we're going to be clear, timely, and open in our communication, so let's live that. Let's put it out on the website.
Yeah,
We've got
that's-
everything
that
else
was-
on.
And
There's
my
a lot of
golly, if some
information.
city
I
wants to
mean,
plagiarize our
there-
HR handbook,
Woohoo, kudos to our.
kudos to us.
You know what? It's cities that do this kind of policy put it on the website. That is very helpful to all communities. So we've used it in
It's
different
a-
ways too.
I bet it is.
Administrators when they're researching things.
Absolutely. So.
Yeah. So I'm hearing direction we would like it placed on the website. Sure.
Sure.
And general consensus is no for drug testing the administration.
Right.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Very, very little. I do have a couple of things, but I just want to start by saying, I know you two and legal has countless hours into this for some time, and I just want to personally thank you for your selflessness. It's a big project.
Thank you.
But this is, this is your bailiwick. This is,
That's what I do.
yeah, this is what you do. So,
I have or did you cover your point? Sorry.
yeah, I just wanted to thank them for their time.
Well, I have a couple questions.
Absolutely.
So I found the personal leave section to be a bit confusing if I were coming to this as a employee. So that would be page 23 mostly. Mostly because I found it conflicted too much with what my idea of personal leave is. It sounded more like sick leave. And so the requirements then, like, you must provide 48 hours notice. Well, if it's supposed to be used for sick leave, how can you provide notice if you're sick the morning of? So to me, there were just some conflicts to what personal time was versus sick leave. And if they're going to be the same thing, I think it needs to be written, I think, a little more clear, in my opinion. And maybe that's because I come from a place that has separate sick leave and personal leave.
Ironically, I found some of the stuff within those few pages kind of confusing to follow, too. It wasn't necessarily differentiating sick leave from personal leave, but I guess that's common practice.
Yeah, I think when you get into whether you're on, a regular employee is sick for the day, clearly they're gonna give Bobby notice that, hey, I'm not coming to work today because
Yep.
I'm sick. I think there's an understanding of that. I think this is more, hey, I'm gonna have a surgery next month. We're expecting that our staff gives notice so that Bobby and his team can figure out how they're gonna do it, or, that's the intent of it.
Okay.
And I think as long as we have an understanding, or Bobby plays that
Absolutely.
way with this, I think we'll be okay.
Absolutely. I mean, there's going to be things that happen. You wake up and you have the flu, and you can't come into work.
And I wouldn't foresee you saying
No,
no.
no.
But
No, and some things happen unscheduled, but.
But if you know you have a doctor's appointment, you
Yeah.
know you're having a medical procedure.
and so maybe that difference.
You want people to be.
It's not an issue now. Staff does a really good job of giving that.
And we're a
as
small place, so I didn't anticipate it to be an issue, but I
No,
did
but it's
find
good to
out.
have in the
Good.
policy.
The benefit component of vacation and sick, I want to try to spend a couple of minutes on that. This is where I found it confusing, because you've got a paragraph upon leaving employment pay, and then you've got several paragraphs that outline the vacation and several paragraphs that outline the sick personal. And you go back and forth on these hours and how many you can retain and in a given year, and how many you can take with you upon separation. And I'm a numbers guy, and I was just trying to follow these numbers, and I just wonder, I don't want to hash it out here, but maybe I can just write a memo and send it, and maybe you can.
Well, what's your
Words-
concern, John?
Well, it's not a concern.
And what page are you at?
I am in the high 80s, 87. So, for example, well, let me just do this.
I think you
It's
mean
of the total packet.
number 20. of the-
20.
Oh, I'm sorry.
20
Yeah,
of
I'm
the
sorry. I'm
annual
sorry.
report
I'm
is
sorry.
on the packet.
Well, let's just start with page 20, even 20. Upon leaving employment pay, benefit-eligible employees leaving city in good standing will receive 100% of their vacation leave balance as compensation. Okay, period, end of point. But somewhere in there was something about you can accumulate this much vacation time per year.
Correct.
And then there was something about what you can accrue and what you can.
Yeah, so a little clarification there. So your vacation is allotted to you based on, I believe it's on
Use
page
of
20.
Right, hours per pay period.
Yep.
Right.
Yep, hours. And so you can bring up to, I believe it is 160 hours or 20 days leave annually. But you can carry up, but employees will be compensated for unused vacation leave up to a maximum of 200 hours. So how that scenario could happen is you can only roll over 160 hours per year, but if you have, let's say, 150 hours you bring over to the next year, and you've accumulated into the next year to 200, you can cash out up to that 200 for that, but not over that 200.
Right, I think the philosophy here is that vacation is an earned benefit.
Mm-hmm.
We're encouraging you to take the vacation so that you get out of here and clear your head. That's what vacation is for. The idea of having a yearly carryover was to encourage use. The idea of having a cap on the payout was to cap the liability.
Correct.
So that's how you get the three pieces together.
100% upon leaving, up to 25 days, and I'm guessing that's a use it or lose it for anything over 20 days in a given year. Okay. In that same paragraph, upon leaving employment pay, let's get into sick and personal. Let's not get to the 5 years and 1/3, but all of a sudden it gets down to 40 days or 320 hours unless that employee was hired after April 1st, 2017. Then it goes on to say employees hired after April 1st, 2017 shall not receive sick pay leave in any capacity. So are we conflicting with, if I were to read employees hired after April 1st, 2017 shall not receive sick leave in any capacity?
But you have to read that in context of that paragraph, which is upon leaving employment. So a person hired after April 1 is not going to get any sick leave payout. So we're essentially grandparenting the people that have been here before
Not
to
taking
those that
something
are
away.
after.
But what about, okay.
Because it was in the current employee handbook, so it'd be taking something away.
Okay,
So that's why that date is in there. It's going forward.
okay. So
Does that make sense?
grandfather and anyone prior to April 1st can accrue the sick leave, take it on separation. Anyone hired after April 1st is not going to, okay.
So related to this line of thought, the last line on page 23 is that employees must use sick leave prior to using paid vacation. And so if we're encouraging them to take vacation, we probably don't want to require them to take sick leave first.
Well, it depends. If you're sick, I think that's where this is really coming in. So if you're sick and you're out for, let's say you had a surgery or something terrible happened to you, and you're out for a month, instead of using up all your vacation, because you're not on vacation.
Yeah.
I mean, you're recovering and you're sick. The idea is that you would use that sick time that you have before you use your vacation. So
So I might clarify that because it starts its own paragraph. So to me, it seems out of context to just say, so I think maybe just add a little like, when ill or injured, use that first.
Well, it's all under the bold heading of personal
Yeah.
leave on
Right.
the page prior.
Yeah, if
So
still,
I would interpret that as,
Well, I didn't, so,
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I saw it as a standalone sentence, and I
Sure.
kind of thought, well, you can't make me do that if I wanted to use vacation, and,
Well, and yeah, when things are grouped in paragraphs, I'm just reading from a contract language perspective.
Yep.
You can't isolate a sentence. You just don't read them that way.
But it
You have
starts
to
off
read them
its
in
own
context
paragraph,
of
though.
their,
But
but even the,
there's a bunch of different
Yeah.
paragraphs
Right.
under this section. If you look on page 22 in bold, you'll see personal leave, in parentheses, sick leave, then in red, applicable employment. So it all falls under that.
no, I think if there's a way,
Until vacation.
Caitlin, that you'd feel more comfortable when ill, an employee must use sick leave. I think that could easily
just a
clarify it
simple-
and
yeah,
not
a
change
simple
the
change.
meaning.
yeah. No, just a simple clarification,
Okay.
so.
That's
Because
good.
even though it's talking about sick leave and it's in the sick leave section, but it's stating, period, you must
Yep.
use sick leave, so. Just a small change.
yeah, good thought.
So on the bottom of 23, last paragraph, before employees, when ill?
When ill.
Is that
Got it noted.
what I'm hearing? Okay.
The last sentence of that paragraph, I don't mean to be a wordsmith, but can we get a comma between annually and up on the very last sentence?
Where are we at?
Sick
Oh,
leave
on
may
page
accumulate
20, top
annually,
24.
comma, up to 120 days maximum.
On the top of 24.
Correct.
Right before
gotcha.
vacation leave,
Right,
right above it.
right.
In that case, that wouldn't change the meaning of that
It wouldn't?
sentence.
It's
It
just
would
a
not.
grammatical.
Okay.
So, no, I'm okay with it because it doesn't change the meaning. Commas sometimes do.
Yeah.
In that case, I don't think it does.
All right,
Okay.
so we're gonna add a comma on 24 and when ill on 23. All right, any further discussion?
I have a question more for Bobby. So
Yep.
at the very bottom, it says that this policy is not contractual language. So, but the letter of offer that we gave Nicole was like a one-pager. So do they receive another contract that has some of these requirements?
No, there's the contract of
So that
joining.
one-page offer is all that they get?
Well, historically, no, I don't know if I'm the first administrator, but I know that we haven't previously ever offered a contract to sign to join to be an employee.
And
It's kind
that-
of your hire date. Once you get approved here, you're in. You know, at that point, it's been approved by city council and it's been made and accepted at that
And I think
point.
technically that was just a confirmation letter.
Correct.
Employees are subject to the handbook.
Mhm.
This is the handbook. So you're subject and governed by this document.
Yep.
But then at the bottom, it says that they may not be. It's like a suggestion
No,
for
it,
discipline.
that sentence is a caveat to try to cover the fact that don't construe this as contract language, because it's not. These are considered policies.
There
There's
are a
difference
lot
between
of
policy
there,
and contract.
there is language in here that gives room for discretion.
Mhm.
So it's not. I mean, there are pieces of this where there are options that could happen. You have avenues that you could go down. So it's not so much a contract where it's ABC, that's it in law. Some of this is subjective to the point of based on the situation at
Well, and
hand.
I think the handbook
So-
should stay policy.
Yeah.
I was just more concerned that if the employee doesn't actually have some of this language regarding days and such
Sure.
in a contract, we might be setting ourselves up for trouble.
Yeah.
So I just didn't know if from a procedural whether we had another contract.
So every employee will be getting a copy of this too, and they know that this is their operating guidelines right here. And that makes them aware of all the different policies that apply to them as employees. So,
The disclaimer as far as the contract language is really just in it to clarify that there's no contractual obligation for continued employment.
Okay.
Basically, it's to clarify that these are the rules, but just by following them, we're not guaranteeing we're gonna continue to
So
hire,
things
to
like
maintain
vacation
employment.
days, do we need those in a contract saying, well, all of a sudden Bobby's decided you only get half that amount? Like, if we don't have a contract, where would we stand? I'm not saying you would, but.
We
think-
changed the policy
Yeah.
manual.
Right.
Okay.
You wouldn't need, to answer your question, you wouldn't need a contract individually to impose limits on vacation and things like that. It would be just, it would track with the handbook.
Yeah. And with that same, like, for instance, they have something with junk mail, you should delete junk mail. Well, that wouldn't be grounds for firing now if you don't delete junk mail, since this isn't a contract. Is that kind of why you put that language in there? So it also protects the employee, or?
Not so much, really. It is a catch-all that's designed. It's in most cities' handbooks primarily so that no one is confused to think, oh, well, if I abide by all of these rules, then you have to continue to maintain my employment.
Mhm.
That's we're saying it. We're not doing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's our out, legal out message. Any further questions or discussion? Okay, so noting the two changes on page 23, adding the when ill before employees, and on page 24, adding the comma after annually. Looking for a motion to approve the employee handbook.
I move, we approve the handbook with those changes.
Motion by?
Second?
Second by Fay. Any further discussion?
So if there's other smaller things like spelling errors or issues like that, can we approve it and then say with a spell check to go through? Because there were a couple.
yeah, if there's any spelling errors or grammatical errors that would not change the definition or the meaning of the sentence or the topic, I'd be happy to add them in with council's blessing.
And how often do we review this?
Well,
As often as we'd like.
Okay, so that would be what.
We, for point of clarification though, we are working with the fire department on some additional pieces that
Okay.
would get integrated in, but we want to get the base set, because you can always add and alter and
Yeah.
change things as we go along.
And I want to thank too Mayor Moskowski and Councilmember DeLuca because and our city attorney, Mr. Thames here, just because the amount of time that you guys put into and really went over this, I really want to thank you guys for letting this come to fruition. So thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The employee handbook is approved. Woo!
I'll give you my notes later.
Okay. You can give your notes. All right, with that, we are moving on to council reports and other business. We'll start with Councilmember Cahill.
I believe I don't have any to report since last meeting. Okay, so-
Thank you. Councilmember Fay.
You know, I had a great last week. I attended Rotary. I attended the Heritage Museum Committee and Pioneer Sarah Creek Watershed. And I don't want to keep us too late, so I did write something out, but I'm just going to concentrate on Pioneer Sarah Creek because I think it's positive news. We debated and approved a budget. And for the first time in recent memory, they actually lowered member assessments. So for every city sans Minnetrista, which only went up by $80, we will all see a small, modest reduction in our assessed fees from the Pioneer Sarah Creek Watershed Commission. That's attributed to two things. Excellent stewardship of the money. Mike, congratulations. Spent 3 years as chairman of it. As well as a little over $200,000 of retained money that is going to be able to be used for portions of capital improvement projects, and they will be used. Greenfield, Medina, and Independence all have hundreds of thousands of dollars of capital improvement projects planned, in which the commission will be offering 10 up to 25% price guarantees, I guess. So very good news. Everyone was very happy and voted unanimously. So thank you to you and your predecessors.
Thank you for that update. Councilmember DeLuca.
I had two items. One is just a clarification. I think, Bobby, you mentioned at the beginning with Nicole, you said an hourly rate of $26 an hour. It's actually 22.
Correct. It is
So
22.
just for the record, let's make sure we have that correct. Secondly, we did
I wrote that too, 'cause
we
I
did
thought-
spend some time last week with Chief McCoy on the next set of HR policy procedures. These are about the call pay, compensation, and those things. So we've had, I would call it a spirited debate about some of those, because I think there's some things we needed to work through. And remember the process, they bring drafts to our committee, we send feedback back, they go back to the fire folks, they come back to us with additional things, and then it'll eventually come to this group for the next round of them. The first round was integrated into the document that you saw. So we're just gonna start, I think we've got, what, John, 2 or 3 more rounds with Justin. He's trying to break it into bits to try to get to the end. And eventually then, all of the firefighters' policies are integrated into our HR manual since they're employees.
Thank you for that update. Councilmember Voda.
Well, had a fun Maple Plain events meeting and kind of nailed down some of our events, as Bobby had alluded to before. But something fun coming is we took 10 popular movies and we're going to bring it to a vote for the residents to vote which 3 movies we're going to watch this summer. So look out for that. We're excited to see what they pick.
Thank you for that update. First, I want to report that our workshop prior to our council meeting, council did go into closed session pending litigation regarding the Magnolia property. So I just wanted to make everyone aware of that. Tonight before our workshop, you may have seen Councilmember DeLuca and I coming out of Administrator Schoen's office. We had a just police commission liaison talk. I was able to attend the West Hennepin Chamber of Commerce. It's a great opportunity just to network with all the local business owners, keep updated what's going on. All of the council should have received an invite to the North Shore Gymnastics wall tearing down ceremony. Check your email from Bobby for that. I was able to attend the Northwest Hennepin League of Municipalities. Commissioner Jan Callison was there from the 6th district. Yes, we do live in the 7th district, but our league represents both. So last year Jeff came, so this year Jan came, and we talked about the 2017 Hennepin County budget. If anyone is interested in that, I will be leaving a copy at